Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack the complex, completely morally gray universe of Adam Simon's Psycho-Babble. Because, look, if you think you know how comic book logic works, you might really want to rethink that. This source material takes those classic, clean-cut tropes from the Golden and Silver Age comics and just runs them through this relentlessly cynical, psychological filter. Today, we're going to explore the frankly bizarre dynamics between the so-called heroes and villains in this universe, where literally everything you assume about good and evil is about to get completely shattered.
We absolutely have to start with this brilliant, provocative question that comes straight from the text. It's the central mystery that plagues our protagonist right from page 1, and it immediately hooks us into the core philosophical dilemma here. Think about it for a second. If you're a supervillain trying to take over the world, why do you leave the hero tied to some ridiculously elaborate, slow-moving death trap? Why not just put a bullet in them and get on with world domination, right? Well, the answer to that question fundamentally changes the entire dynamic of this world.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The traditional superhero illusion. 2. Meet the anti-hero protagonist. 3. Assembling the new guard. 4. The true mastermind antagonist. 5. The heroes become threats. And 6. Redefining good and evil.
Section 1. The traditional superhero illusion. The myth of the infallible paragon.
To really get this, let's look at how this builds up historically in the lore. Back in the 1920s, Prohibition basically led to these weirdos and freaks putting on masks to fight crime when the police were too corrupt to do it. It was kind of like a weird status symbol. Then in the 1930s, Prohibition ends, and these vigilantes just start fighting each other for territory. They literally created the concept of the supervillain out of the losers of these turf wars. Fast forward to the 1940s, World War II hits, and the government essentially weaponizes these costumed folks, endorsing them as these infallible paragons of virtue to fight the Axis powers. From that point on, everyday citizens were just trained to worship them as perfect, flawless gods. But listen to this deeply cynical perspective from our protagonist, Junior. He looks at this whole historical setup and just sees right through it. His core philosophy is that heroes actually refuse to stop supervillains permanently. And why? Because allowing these villains to just break out and return again and again to do bad things is the only way the heroes can reinforce their own self-worth. They literally need an endless loop of villains just to justify their own destructive, self-righteous behavior. Like dressing up in spandex and casually destroying entire city blocks.
Section 2. Meet the anti-hero protagonist, a 14-year-old terrorist.
This brings us to Junior, who eventually takes on the extremely fitting moniker Psycho-Babble. Imagine trusting a kid with an LCD helmet and some tactical gear to save your entire city. Because our quote-unquote hero is essentially a 14-year-old domestic terrorist. He's got absolutely no superpowers, zero. He just wears a tactical suit and that helmet to subliminally influence people. And his approach to fighting crime, wildly destructive. Get this, in his very first mission to execute a villain that the mainstream heroes are just ignoring, Junior and his team accidentally blow up an entire apartment building, getting totally innocent neighbors caught in the crossfire. The dynamic here is incredibly jarring. The protagonist who's fighting for justice is entirely comfortable with mass collateral damage.
Section 3. Assembling the new guard. The grayest good guys.
Now, Junior isn't stupid. He knows he can't fight this massive, entrenched system of superheroism all by himself. And look at the bizarre psychology of the team he puts together, the New Guard. So we have Junior, driven by this militant, almost obsessive sense of justice. Then we have Fatso. He's a 500-pound man who literally eats people. Technically a villain, but he joined the heroes purely out of this simple-minded obedience. Then there's Artemis, who is an actual, literal Greek goddess. But she's a raging alcoholic dealing with centuries of unresolved trauma. And finally, Mary Wonder, or Starlet, who is a registered supervillain only tagging along to save her brainwashed parents. This just perfectly illustrates how deeply broken, mismatched individuals somehow end up representing the good guys in this universe. They navigate that murky gray area between good and evil perfectly.
Okay, before we move on to the antagonist, I really have to point out this incredible piece of irony derived directly from a therapy session in the source text. A former sidekick has this epiphany that the so-called villains actually take way better care of child sidekicks than the supposedly virtuous heroes do. The heroes just throw children right into the line of fire like disposable soldiers. But the villains, they'll tie the sidekicks to a chair and let them live, often risking their own grand evil schemes out of pure pity. It is such a twisted dynamic, but it totally proves that the labels of good and evil are completely backwards here.
Section 4. The true mastermind antagonist. a twisted form of therapy.
So midway through our explainer, we reach this massive twist that totally shifts our understanding of the entire power structure of the city and who the actual antagonist really is. The ultimate mastermind? It isn't some radioactive monster or an alien invader. It's Dr. Mento. He is Junior's father, a former superhero, and a practicing therapist. Dr. Mento has secretly blanketed the entire metropolis in this psychic mind control field. He is literally dictating the actions of every single hero, villain, and civilian. He is enforcing world peace by completely stripping away the free will of millions of people.
And you have to look at these bizarre, arbitrary rules Dr. Mento hardwired into everyone's brains. No harming women or children. Villains must always wear costumes. Never sell super technology for profit. And crucially, never kill a superhero. Wait, this is it. This completely explains Junior's core question from the beginning. The villains don't kill the heroes because Mento literally programmed them not to. He forcibly maintained this PG-13 illusion of a classic sanitized comic book universe, essentially playing God with everyone's minds to keep the city in a perpetual, manageable stalemate.
Hearing this quote hits like an absolute gut punch. Just listen to the twisted justification here. Dr. Mento genuinely believes his totalitarian mind control makes him the ultimate hero. I mean, he achieved the ultimate goal of every supervillain, total world domination, but he did it under the guise of saving the city. The dynamic between our protagonist and antagonist is so fascinating. Junior, the quote-unquote hero, uses actual terrorist tactics for freedom, while Mento, the villain, uses peace and safety to justify mass psychological slavery.
Section 5. The heroes become threats, the paradigm shift.
But what happens when Dr. Mento's mind control inevitably shatters? Well, the absolute irony of the situation when the programming drops is staggering. Unchecked by the mind control, the villains act completely rationally. They realize there's absolutely no logical reason to fight invincible gods in this specific city, so what do? They literally write a polite note to the heroes and just leave for unprotected cities to get rich. Now contrast that with the heroes' reaction. Without Mento forcing them to be good, the heroes instantly morph into oppressive, fascist dictators. They barricade the city, trap the civilians inside, form a totalitarian police state, demand IDs, and literally threaten to shoot any citizens who dare question their authority.
It becomes terrifyingly clear that the League heroes, now unchecked by any programming, are a massive danger to the very society they claim to protect. Because they have ultimate power and zero psychological guardrails, they just default to absolute control. And they justify their tyranny because they were hit by space rays or have mutant genes, genuinely believing this makes them inherently superior to the normal civilians they are busy imprisoning.
Section 6. Redefining Good and Evil, Navigating the Gray.
So with the traditional heroes now acting as full-blown fascist dictators, this forces Junior and his misfit team to step up. They have to execute this highly unconventional and honestly incredibly destructive assault to take down the city's self-appointed protectors. Check out this plan. Step 1. Literally blow up the superhero safe haven compound with C4. Step 2. Engage in a brutal, chaotic distraction against godlike beings. Step 3. Feed the invincible hero Obelisk to Fatso, where he will be digested in a fifth-dimensional stomach for 1,000 years. Yeah, you heard that right. It is a terrifying, brutal, terrorist-style assault. Yet, in this completely inverted dynamic, it's basically the only way to free the innocent civilians from their so-called saviors.
3 years. After the dust finally settles from Junior's crazy assault, it takes a full 3 years for society to return to anything resembling normal. FEMA has to come in and repair the city. The mainstream heroes, they are no longer trusted as these pure harbingers of justice. The public finally sees the truth. The superheroes, with their completely unchecked power and absolute lack of accountability, were the actual destabilizing force all along.
So, it really all comes down to this. Are we defined by the arbitrary labels society gives us? Hero, villain, good, evil? Or are we defined by the choices we actually make when the programming finally stops? Junior did terrible things, but he fought for free will. The heroes did terrible things, and they fought for control. It makes you wonder, who are the real villains in the stories we worship? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning the narrative.